We often hear we are all a little OCD, but it is not that simple. OCD, or obsessive compulsive disorder, is often portrayed as the cleaning disorder. When the disorder is referred to, it is described more so as a personality trait versus a disorder that can ultimately be overwhelming for someone who does suffer from it. Obsessive compulsive disorder is a mental disorder that causes one to get caught in a cycle of obsessions and compulsions. These obsessions are unwanted thoughts, urges, or sometimes images that trigger intensely distressing feelings, according to the International OCD Foundation. The compulsions are repeated behaviors that a person feels the urge to perform in response to these unwanted and intrusive thoughts. In my personal experience, I get thoughts filled with unlikely scenarios in my head, which trigger an intense wave of anxiety, which is only subdued once I check whatever my scenario involves. Sounds crazy saying it out loud. For example, my triggers often involve appliances that I use every day. So it often involves something that I know, that I've touched, that I've used throughout the day. I start about 3 hours before bed and check certain electrical plugs that I know I've used throughout the day to ensure that I have either completely unplugged it or that is completely plugged in, so it is not partially unplugged. If I do not, I assume that I have either not unplugged said product or it is not plugged in properly, which could lead to a fire hazard or a house fire. It is not as simple as just looking at the plug either. It is not just electrical plugs, but I think I am more comfortable sharing this example. I do it in a pattern. The pattern, for whatever reason, assures my brain that I have in fact checked it. It is almost a ritual of sorts that I've created for myself for me to sleep peacefully at night. Obsessions are typically accompanied by intense and uncomfortable feelings such as fear, doubt, disgust, or just a simple feeling that things have to be done right. The word obsess is a common term. You might hear someone say, I am obsessed with this restaurant, or I'm obsessed with this type of food. Or for me, I have recently become obsessed with the Harry Potter franchise all over again. Because the term itself is common, it can diminish the meaning of what OCD truly is. When referring to the disorder, these obsessions are unwanted and uncontrollable. If I could simply say, I'm not going to take the hour that I spend every night checking said plugs, no more. I would do it in a heartbeat. But once I try to suppress that thought, I instantly get a rush of anxiety and think, well, if you don't check it, you might not wake up if the fire starts. And then what? Research has shown that these intrusive thoughts come frequently and can often get in the way to day-to-day life. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, a person with OCD does not get pleasure from performing behaviors or rituals and often spend about an hour on these thoughts or behaviors. I work from home now, like most of us do during these times, and I do work a late shift. I work 4 p.m. to 12:30 in the morning. Because my thoughts typically happen about 3 or so hours before I do go to bed, I do take time from work to actually go over these behaviors. I am the last one up in the house because of my late shift, and everybody typically has an early morning. So I feel if I do not check whatever I feel I need to check, then it is my responsibility if something does happen. During the day, I am fine because I am not the only one up. Even when talking about it in depth, it sounds so unreasonable. And I repeatedly tell myself that. Every night, I will tell myself I will only do said behavior once. Once I do it, I should be good for the night. But then again, I cannot suppress that thought unless I perform certain behaviors. And it is done repeatedly. And it is very, very time consuming. When I first heard of OCD, I actually heard it from Keeping Up with the Kardashians. The family often refers to Khloe about being OCD. She's also had episodes and shorts on her app that shows off her kitchen, which is very well organized. Everything in the pantries are in separate containers, which are labeled. Um, Everything on the counters are placed, organized. Everything is very tidy and kept. When referring to certain things, she would say, I am so OCD about this and I am so OCD about that. But again, it was referring to being neat. According to the Advantage Mental Health Center, a common stereotype surrounding OCD is that they are all neat freaks. A common OCD behavior is cleanliness, but it also extends further than just the idea of wanting to keep things clean. The difference is having a sense of control over the desire to be clean versus just wanting to be around a clean environment. No one wants to be surrounded in filth. There are films and shows that portray OCD in different lights that help to show what the disorder truly is. As Good as It Gets by James L. Brooke has a character named Melvin, played by Jack Nicholson, that suffers from OCD. In the film, it shows him excessively washing his hands at certain times, referring to the need to be clean. However, it also shows the character going through ritual-like behavior as well. For example, in one scene, he is repeatedly unlocking and locking a door. I went through a stage where I would repeatedly check to see if the door was locked by unlocking, locking it back up again, a certain amount of times. So when I did watch this, it was as if something clicked. I had finally seen a portrayal that I could connect with. It was as if I was experiencing the feeling you go through when performing those behaviors. Then, once he walked away from whatever he was checking, I felt that relief, that it was done. He was good for the night. That could be portrayed as a stereotype of just watching someone touch something repeatedly before being done with it. But it was something other than just being a clean freak and just being organized. It actually helped me recognize what I could possibly be going through, which was very important. OCD goes into much more depth than just being clean. It can be harmful towards people who do suffer from the compulsion part of OCD because these behaviors are often embarrassing and time consuming. Like many other things, OCD does come with a stereotype. But moving forward, hopefully there can be more of an accurate representation of the disorder so that more can become aware and educated. Thank you.